this one. Oh, bugger. There we go. Wow, aren't we lucky to have heard that original recording of a man in 1532 trying to get into his house, but he kept choosing the wrong key. Nightmare. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the final couplet. Today we're looking at Sonnet 97. Wow, nearly at the big 100. And I do have a guest lined up for 100. You've met him before, and he did say that he would come back for Sonnet 100, and I have that in writing. Well, not in writing, but in audio form. So he has to come back. And I know he's busy. He's a bit of a celebrity now. But honestly, I think this will do a lot for his profile, this podcast. So that'll be fun to do. Also, next month I'm off to the USA for 2.5 weeks, maybe 3 weeks actually, to see my cousin get married, which would be nice. And then I thought I'd go to New York and soak up the Big Apple. But don't worry, because I hear you worrying, and I hear you going, no, oh God, no. What if I can't hear Sonnet 103? Well, I'm going to try and pre-record them, alright? Just for you. I might miss a week. We'll see. And while I'm at it, if you've got any good New York recommendations, send them my way. Thank you very much. Right, let's take a listen to Sonnet 97. How like a winter hath my absence been from thee, the pleasure of the fleeting year. What freezings have I felt, what dark days seen, what old December's bareness everywhere. And yet, this time removed was summer's time, the teeming autumn big with rich increase, bearing the wanton burthen of the prime, like widowed wombs after the Lord's decease. Yet this abundant issue seemed to me but hope of orphans and unfathered fruit. For summer and his pleasures wait on thee, and thou away, the very birds are mute. Or, if they sing, 'tis with so dull a cheer that leaves look pale, dreading the winter's near. So that is Sonnet 97. And there's some really intense imagery in this, I'd say. It's good to hear Shakespeare talking about the seasons again. I've missed it. It's been a few sonnets since he's been talking about the seasons. So we got summer, we got winter, we got autumn, we got spring, we got the whole lot. But of course, Shakespeare being Shakespeare, he's going to bring some bleak elements in, like widows and orphans. And I think it's interesting to note that there's a distance between Shakespeare and his lover. In this sonnet, he's talking about the absence between them. And he's talked about that before. There's been various points in these sonnets. I think maybe in the 30s or 40s, maybe 20s actually, when he was talking about how hard it was to be apart from his lover. Right, let's dive into this line by line and work out what the hell Shakespeare was talking about in Sonnet 97. So we start with, how like a winter hath my absence been from thee, the pleasure of the fleeting year. So my absence from you, our separation, has felt like winter, because you are the pleasure of the fleeting year. You are what makes the year so amazing. And in the past, we've heard Shakespeare talk about winter, and winter being like the bleakest month, which I think he's got a point. So he's saying this absence has felt like winter. We don't know yet if it actually has been winter, but he'll get onto that. He continues with, what freezings have I felt? What dark days seen? That's pretty self-explanatory. I barely even need to translate that for you, but I'll do it anyway. I've felt absolutely freezing and the days have been really dark. And I think dark has got a double meaning there, because dark as in, the days are darker in winter anyway, but also dark in his soul, probably. What old December's bareness everywhere. So we're still on this same analogy, and he's saying everything has been as bare and barren as December. Interesting that he chooses December as the winter month, because I would probably go for January or February. I think those are much bleaker months in the winter than December. Because December, you got a bit of festive cheer. But I guess, no, hold on a second. I was going to say Christmas was maybe a bit bleak back then, but they loved that. You've heard the Christmas episodes. If you haven't, go back and have a listen, because in Shakespeare's time, Christmas was still a big deal and there were lots of festivities. So I would say December maybe not the best month to choose there, Shakespeare. Just if you wanted to revise this, probably put January in there, February maybe. And yet this time removed was summer's time. So I said we didn't know whether it was winter that he was actually talking about, or it just felt like winter. And it wasn't winter, it was summer. The time that they've been apart has actually been summer. And he continues, the teeming autumn big with rich increase, bearing the wanton burthen of the prime, like widows' wombs after the Lord's decease. So there's quite a lot to take in there, but it is all one thought. So he said it's summer, but it's also been autumn as well. So actually they've been apart for a while. And then he's basically taken a little time to describe autumn, as if we didn't know what autumn was all about, Shakespeare. Thank you. So he's saying, then autumn, which is full of, rich harvest, when nature gives birth to spring's crops. So obviously we plant the crops in spring, and then autumn we harvest them. It's a nice way of putting it though, isn't it? Bearing the wanton burthen of the prime. So the prime refers to spring here. So it is literally giving birth, or bearing spring's crops. And then we have a bleak little analogy, which is like widowed wombs after their lord's decease. And it is quite bleak, but I love this. I love this as an image. Because what I think he's saying is, just like in autumn nature gives birth to spring's crops, it's much like a widow giving birth to her late husband's child. And the husband in this case would be spring. So the mother moves on. Spring has planted its seed, if you will, and then has died. We've lost spring, just like the husband has died. But time is moving on. The mother is still there and is still pregnant and eventually gives birth in autumn. I think that's such an interesting image. Like the mother continuing on through those months, but she has lost her husband. Spring is gone. And then eventually we have the beauty of the birth. It's a good one, Shakespeare. Nice. I'll give you that. And we continue with, yet this abundant issue seemed to me but hope of orphans and unfathered fruit. So he's back to talking about himself here. Classic Shakespeare. And he's saying, but all this abundance in autumn seemed to me much like a hopeless orphan, really. And he'll tell us why now. For summer and his pleasures wait on thee, and thou away, the very birds are mute. So that's why he feels like an orphan, because the summer and summer's pleasures are all down to you, Shakespeare's lover. And when you're away, the birds don't even sing. So summer is bleak as hell. And like you said earlier, summer's pretty much just like winter. And now we're on to the final couplet, which is a continuation of the bird thought. Or if they sing, 'tis with so dull a cheer that leaves look pale, dreading the winter's near. I really like this final couplet as well. The imagery here is great. And I don't often say that about Shakespeare, so you know he's doing a good job. So you know we've just talked about the birds and how they're mute when Shakespeare's lover's away. And here he's saying, if they sing, if the birds do happen to sing, they sound so dull and boring and lacking of cheer that the leaves of the trees, etc., turn pale with fear, dreading that winter is drawing near. So the leaves are going, oh God, no! The birds have stopped singing, or they're singing really badly. That means that winter's coming, and they go all pale. That imagery is so sort of cartoonish, don't you think? I can really imagine a Cartoon Network show having something like that, where the birds are singing really badly and then the leaves are turning pale. Yes, that's right, I did compare Shakespeare to the Cartoon Network. Has anyone else done that before? Shouldn't have thought so. Right, that is Sonnet 97, and there's some great visual elements. It's great to be back talking about the seasons. Shakespeare loves to do that. He loves to talk about the seasons in the sonnets, and I think they're helpful for us to visualise various feelings. Winter, of course, is bleak again. He's always said that winter's bleak. He hates winter. We know that Shakespeare hates winter the most, which is interesting because I would potentially have him down as sort of someone that's a bit grumpy and hates summer for some reason. It's a bit like, oh, I get burned in the summer, it's not very nice. And actually I like winter because I can just sit in my little writing room and write my lovely little plays. But apparently not. He doesn't like winter, it's bleak. So that's good to hear. It's good to hear we're on the same page, Shakespeare. Right, I think it's about time we put this to our story. And if you remember last week, Shakespeare, he's obviously caught his lover, Christopher Marlowe, sleeping around with the maitre d' from the restaurant. And Christopher Marlowe has gone, yeah, I know, Shakespeare, I'm so sorry, I know, I said that I'd go to sex therapy, etc., but actually, obviously I do have a problem and I needed to have sex and I'm really sorry. And Shakespeare says, all right, come with me, we're going to the pub to talk about this. They go to the Nag's Head, of course, that's the local pub. And when they enter, everyone sort of looks at Shakespeare like, all right. And then Christopher Marlowe comes in, everyone's like, hey, Christopher Marlowe, legend. And everyone was sort of saying, oh, having an affair's not that bad, he's all right, and he's really sexy and hot, and he's got a lovely smile, so just forgive him. And that's obviously made Shakespeare angry. It would make anyone angry. And then Shakespeare says, no, this is the problem. He keeps getting away with everything because he's hot. Everyone's bigging him up. We need to take him down a peg or two. Then for some reason Shakespeare goes to write Sonnet 96 in the toilet, which we haven't really worked out why. Comes back and recites it to Christopher Marlowe, and indeed the patrons of the pub. And of course, Sonnet 96 was all about how Shakespeare's lover, Christopher Marlowe, has been abusing his good looks and how much everyone loves him. And if you remember, he uses the analogy, you're like a wolf in sheep's clothing. And actually, if you keep doing all these bad things, all this cheating and sleeping around, you're going to make me, Shakespeare, look bad because I'm so close to you. So actually you're going to ruin my reputation. So it's sort of like a warning. Anyway, let's see how Sonnet 97 fits into all this. Shakespeare finishes reading Sonnet 96. The pub falls silent. Everyone looks to Christopher Marlowe for a response. Marlowe says, I'm sorry, Shakespeare. Oh no, I've said I'm sorry before, but I really am. I don't mean to do this to you. I can't help being hot and sexy. But I don't want to ruin your reputation. I really don't. And Shakespeare says, Marlowe, look, I think you need to get away from temptation. I think we need to go away together for a little bit. Have some time out of the city. I've got a lovely holiday cottage in the outskirts of London, if you fancy it. Marlowe, with a single tear running down his cheek, nods his head slowly. Let's do it. And with that, Shakespeare and Marlowe bow their heads to the patrons of the pub and leave. They go back to Shakespeare's house and pack up their things, ready for a little city break. Marlowe's putting his clothes in his bag, and Shakespeare says, "Oh, I know we're only going for a week, but I think you should take some more, just in case we get stuck or something like that. I think you should take sort of all of your clothes, just as a little, I don't want to force that upon you, but I think you should take a lot of your clothes." And Marlowe says, "Oh, okay, I thought we were only just going for a little bit, but I can take all of my clothes." And Shakespeare says, "Good. And Marlowe says, "Why are you only taking a little bit?" And Shakespeare says, "Oh, don't worry about that. I just like to wear the same thing over and over. You know me." Marlowe nods his head. Shakespeare goes outside and hails a carriage, and loads it up with all their stuff. After a couple of hours riding in the carriage, Marlowe and Shakespeare arrive at Shakespeare's holiday cottage. Marlowe says, "Oh, Shakespeare, it's so great to be out in the countryside, away from all these lovely men, and just being with you. It's brilliant." And Shakespeare says, "I'm so glad you feel that way. Right, let's go inside. You go first, Marlowe." And Marlowe walks into the holiday cottage. Shakespeare, just behind him, quick as a flash, closes the front door and locks it. Marlowe turns round. "Shakespeare? Are you coming in?" "Marlowe, don't be angry." "Shakespeare, what's going on? Why have you locked the door?" He goes over and tries to open the door frantically, rattling the handle. "It's no use, Marlowe. The door's locked. It's bolted. There's no way for you to get out." "Shakespeare, what the hell are you doing? What is going on?" "Marlowe, this is for your own good. I've put food and water in the house, enough for you to survive for 6-7 months. Marlowe says, 6-7 months? What are you talking about? We're only going for the weekend." "Marlowe, this is an intervention. You need time alone with your thoughts and away from other sexy men." "Shakespeare, this is crazy. What are you doing?" "No, I'm not going to do this." "Marlowe, it's for your own good. God, I'm going to miss you. I really am. But once you've been through this ordeal, you will be a better man." And with that, he turns, gets back in the carriage, and leaves. And as he clip-clops away, he can hear the screams of Marlowe. "Shakespeare! What are you doing? Shakespeare!" Shakespeare returns to London. He's distraught. He doesn't like what he's had to do. The summer months pass, and Shakespeare remains stubborn, but distraught. He misses his lover, Christopher Marlowe, but he knows this is the only way to fix him. As autumn rolls round, he decides to write Marlowe a letter, explaining to him just how painful the absence is, but how worthwhile it will be. He goes to his little writing desk and scrawls Sonnet 97. When he's finished, he opens up his window and throws the sonnet out onto the street. He says, "You boy, hey boy, pick that up and take it to this address." And the boy says, "Sorry, sir, I'm just a kid. What are you? I'm just playing." And Shakespeare says, "No, you're a messenger boy now, and you're taking that letter to Christopher Marlowe in the countryside. Go and do it now." And the boy says, "Oh, but sir, I've got to be home for dinner." And Shakespeare says, "Forget your dinner. Deliver the message." "Oh, okay, sir. Okay." And so with that, the boy runs, and he runs and runs for days. Because he's on foot, it takes him bloody ages. Eventually, he arrives at the cottage and delivers the letter to Christopher Marlowe. Marlowe says, "Who's that? Who's that? Is that Shakespeare? Oh God, hello, Shakespeare." And the boy says, "No, sir, it's just a messenger boy. Well, I wasn't a messenger boy this morning, but now I am, I guess." And Marlowe says, Oh, thank God. Can you open the door for me?" And the boy says, "No, sir. I don't have any keys. I'm just a boy." And Marlowe says, "Oh, for God's sake, get out of here." And the boy says, Are you Pay me? No, I'm not going to pay you. I don't have any money. Get out of here. The boy says, oh, for God's sake. Do you have any food? No, get out. Goodbye. And with that, the boy returns home. We don't know if he ever made it back to London. Marlowe scrabbles around to find the letter that was just delivered. He holds it up to his candle and reads Sonnet 97. My absence from you has felt like winter, because you are what makes the fleeting year pleasurable. I've felt bloody freezing, and the days have seemed bloody dark. Everything has been as bare as it is in December, and yet we've actually been apart during the summer, then autumn, full of rich harvest when nature gives birth to spring crops, like a widow giving birth to her late husband's child. But all that abundance seemed to me like hopeless orphans, because summer and summer's pleasures are down to you, and when you're away the birds don't sing. Or if they sing, they sound so dull and lacking of cheer that the leaves turn pale with fear, dreading that winter is drawing near. So there we have it, Sonnet 97, and Shakespeare has for some mad reason locked Christopher Marlowe up in his holiday cottage outside London in the hope that it will cure him and mean that he doesn't have any more affairs. It's a bold idea. I'm not sure if it's going to work, but let's find out next week on the final couplet. Until then,